It was a typical evening when Melanie hit me with it, the kind of thing that threw me off in a way I hadn't been prepared for. We were sitting on the couch, the TV on low, her laptop open beside her. I was scrolling through emails, trying to unwind after a long day of coding, when she dropped the bomb. "I scheduled you a consultation for a vasectomy," she said, like it was no big deal. I looked up, blinking, trying to make sense of what she just said. "Wait, what?" "Yeah, I think it's time we, start thinking about this. We've talked about not having kids, so I made the appointment for you." I felt a cold rush run through me, like someone had dumped ice water down my back. I didn't know how to respond. We talked about kids, sure, but never in a serious, concrete way. And definitely not like this, a permanent, irreversible decision. I forced a laugh, trying to mask the knot in my stomach. "Mel, I didn't agree to anything like that. A vasectomy? That's huge." She shrugged, casual as always. "It's just a consultation. We're not saying we're doing it tomorrow. It's just to see what options are out there." But it wasn't just a consultation, was it? She'd made an appointment for me, scheduled it in my name without asking. That felt wrong. I could feel my autonomy slipping through my fingers, and I hated it. I could already see it. I'd be in that clinic, sitting on some cold exam table, signing papers for a procedure I never had a say in. "I'm going to cancel it," I said, the words falling out of my mouth before I even had time to think them through. Melanie didn't flinch. She kept scrolling on her laptop like it didn't matter. "Jake, it's just a consultation. Why make a big deal of it? I'm just being proactive, thinking ahead. For us." I stood up, suddenly restless, my mind spinning. Couldn't let this go. My body, my decision. "I'll cancel it," I repeated. I grabbed my phone and made the call. When I told the receptionist I wanted to cancel, she hesitated. "It was scheduled under your name, Mr. Warren," she said, which rattled me. "Are you sure? We've got you booked for next Thursday." "Yeah, I'm sure," I said, voice tight. "Cancel it, please." I hung up and stared at my phone for a long moment. It wasn't just about the vasectomy anymore. It was about feeling like I didn't have control over my own life, over my own body. When Melanie got home later, I was making dinner, trying to act like everything was fine, though inside, I was anything but. The air felt thick with the weight of the unspoken. I wasn't sure how to deal with this, or how to explain why I felt so unsettled. But I knew one thing. It was going to be hard to let go of this feeling of being steamrolled. When Melanie walked in, I was standing at the stove, trying to look like I wasn't seething underneath. I'd been quiet for the last 20 minutes, focusing on chopping vegetables, keeping my eyes down, just to avoid the heavy tension hanging between us. She dropped her purse on the counter, not even glancing at me. Cleared my throat. "I got the confirmation email about the vasectomy appointment." She paused, then shrugged, like it was no big deal. "Yeah? What about it?" I turned to face her, forcing my voice to sound casual, like I wasn't pissed off. "Just thought it was kind of funny. You scheduling that under my name without even mentioning it." Her face froze, a flicker of realization passing through her. She turned toward me slowly, and that's when I knew it wasn't as casual as she wanted it to be. I didn't think it would be a big deal," she said, voice suddenly softer. "It's just a consultation, Jake. Nothing more. I was just helping you think ahead." I shook my head, stepping closer. "Helping? You made a huge decision for me without even asking if I was okay with it. You don't get to decide something like that for me, Mel." She crossed her arms, looking defensive. "It's not a big deal. I don't see why you're making it one. We've talked about not having kids." "Yeah, but not about making permanent decisions." I cut in, my voice sharper now. "We were talking about timing, not cutting things off for good. You don't just schedule a surgery for someone without asking them first." She huffed out a breath, rolling her eyes. "It's a consultation, Jake. A consultation. Not the actual procedure." "Why are you overreacting?" Couldn't believe it. "Overreacting," I repeated, incredulous. "This is about my body. You don't get to just take it into your own hands, Melanie." She stepped forward, eyes flashing with irritation. You act like I'm trying to control you. It's just like the birth control I've been using for years. That's a medical decision too. I've been carrying that burden alone for us, and I'm just trying to make sure we're on the same page about everything. Don't you see? I snapped, the frustration pushing me further. If you can make decisions about my body, why can't I make decisions about yours? You ever think about that? You ever think about what I might need or want? Her lips curled into a thin line, and she leaned in, eyes narrowing. Now you're being dramatic, Jake. This isn't about you trying to control my life. I'm just looking out for us. Stung, hearing her call me dramatic. I wasn't the one who'd crossed a line, but the words hit me, like they always did when she got frustrated. I tried to swallow down the anger, but it just simmered. I canceled the appointment, I said, my voice tight with finality. Melanie blinked, her face suddenly losing color. You what? I nodded, trying to stay calm, but it was getting harder. I canceled it. I'm not going through with it. Not after you decided that for me. I don't care if it was just a consultation. I'm done with you making medical decisions for me without my say. Her jaw clenched, eyes flashing with fury. You've got to be kidding me, she muttered, shaking her head. You're throwing a fit over something like this? You've completely blown it out of proportion. You're the one who went behind my back to schedule it. I shot back, my voice rising. You don't get to control me like that, Melanie. Not now. Not ever. She pushed past me, her breath quick and shallow. Unbelievable. She spat, the words sharp and bitter. I can't believe you're making this such a big thing. You've completely twisted everything around. I stood there, watching her grab her coat off the chair. Where are you going? I asked, my voice catching slightly, though I wasn't sure why. I'm going to Rachel's, she said, not even looking at me as she yanked open the door. I need to get away from this. From you. The door slammed shut behind her, and the sound echoed in the empty apartment like a punctuation mark. I stood there for a long time, trying to breathe, trying to calm down, but the anger didn't go away. It just simmered beneath the surface, like everything else between us. I paced the apartment after Melanie left, the anger still bubbling in my chest. It felt like my head was filled with too many thoughts, too many things I hadn't said, things I was too angry to even form into words. So, instead of trying to calm down, I started thinking about what I could do. I needed to make her feel the same way I felt, disrespected, ignored, and steamrolled. I needed her to understand what it felt like to have someone make decisions for you without ever asking. I grabbed my laptop and started searching for a therapist. I didn't care about finding someone who was a perfect fit. I just needed someone who could make her uncomfortable, just like she'd done to me. I found Dr. Morgan, a therapist who specialized in relationships and boundary issues. Perfect. I didn't hesitate, booked an appointment under Melanie's name, paid up front, $200, and made sure it was non-refundable. That last part was important. She'd have no choice but to go. I felt a little sick to my stomach as I confirmed the appointment, but I told myself it was justified. She'd crossed a line first. A few hours later, I was sitting on the couch, trying to focus on some random show, when Melanie walked back in. Her hair was pulled up messily, and she looked like she'd been fighting back tears. The moment she glanced at her phone, her face changed. I watched as she froze, reading something, then scrolling back through her email. Her brows furrowed, lips pressing tight together. She put her phone down on the table, slowly turning to me. "What's this?" she asked, her voice shaking with the kind of anger I hadn't expected. I glanced at the screen. It was the confirmation email for the therapy session. I could feel her gaze burning into me. "I booked an appointment for you with Dr. Morgan," I said calmly, not looking away from the TV. "Thought it might be helpful. It's for relationship stuff, boundary issues, things we could both work on." She didn't even try to hide the shock. Her face went pale, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. "Why would you do this?" Her voice was low, dangerous. "Jake, why would you book me an appointment without asking?" I shrugged, not even a hint of guilt in my tone. "I mean, you made decisions for me without asking, right? Thought I'd return the favor." Her eyes narrowed, but I could see the hurt creeping in beneath the anger. She took a step closer. This is petty. You're being manipulative, Jake. Manipulative, I repeated, my voice tight. I'm just giving you a taste of what it feels like to have someone control you, to make decisions about your body and your life without asking for your input. You're being childish. She bit the words off like they were poison. This is insane. You can't just book me a therapy session without talking to me first. Just like you scheduled a vasectomy consultation for me without asking? I said, my voice rising. I didn't have a say in that, Melanie. You didn't think it was a big deal then. So why is this different? She was shaking now, her face flushed with fury. Cancel it? She demanded, her hands clenched into fists. Cancel it right now. I held up my phone, showing her the email confirmation. Can't. Already prepaid. It's non-refundable. Her breath hitched as the realization set in. I saw the shift in her expression, the way she couldn't quite hold it together anymore. You're such an asshole, Jake, she spat, her voice cracking. I can't believe you're doing this. You're just going to escalate everything. I'm not escalating anything. I shot back, standing up, my anger matching hers. I'm responding. You don't get to make decisions about me and then act surprised when I do the same to you. She stared at me for a long moment, her face a mix of betrayal and fury, before she grabbed her bag from the counter. I'm done with this. I'm staying with Rachel. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words stuck in my throat. She didn't give me the chance to respond. The door slammed behind her with a finality that felt like a punch to the gut. I stood there, feeling the weight of the silence settle around me. I knew I'd pushed her to a breaking point, but part of me couldn't back down now. She needed to understand that boundaries weren't something you just trampled on. Not with me. I sat back down on the couch, the TV still on, but I wasn't watching. My hands were shaking slightly, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. What the hell had I just done? The next few days dragged by like a slow-motion car crash, each moment feeling heavier than the last. I tried to keep busy, but my mind kept wandering back to the argument with Melanie. It was impossible to ignore. The silence between us was suffocating, and every time I sat down to focus on something, work, the TV, anything, my thoughts kept spiraling back to the fight. I thought about all the times Melanie had overstepped before. The way she'd bought me clothes I didn't ask for, always choosing what she thought looked good without consulting me. How she'd moved my stuff around without asking, like she had the right to organize my life the way she saw fit. It wasn't just one thing. It was a pattern, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. But then I started to wonder, was I being too rigid? Too stubborn? Maybe it was all small stuff, little things that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Maybe I was overreacting, focusing on the wrong things. I didn't hear from Melanie for a few days after she stormed out. Not a single text, call, or anything. Just nothing. The silence between us grew so thick. I started questioning if I was ever going to hear from her again. I didn't reach out either. Part of me didn't know what to say. The other part of me was still angry. Angry about the vasectomy appointment, angry about feeling like she made decisions for me without my consent, like I didn't have a voice in my own life. Then, on the fourth day, I got a text from her. Jake, I know I messed up. I shouldn't have scheduled that appointment without talking to you. I get why you're upset, and I'm sorry, but I still think you overreacted. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time, the words digging into me. On one hand, the apology was there, but on the other, she still thought I'd overreacted. It was hard to take seriously when she couldn't fully admit she crossed a line. I spent the rest of the day pacing around the apartment, replaying everything over and over again in my head. Should I apologize? Should I text back? Part of me wanted to just give in, ease the tension, and make it go away. But then I'd think about how she'd just made a decision for me without even blinking, about how I hadn't been given a choice, a say in something that directly impacted me. That's what kept me from picking up my phone. A couple of hours passed, and she sent another message. I'm just saying, you've been really distant. You can't keep avoiding this. Let's talk. I rubbed my face, frustrated. but also feeling like I wasn't making any progress by sitting here brooding. I thought about texting her back, about telling her how I was feeling, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to just forgive and forget. So I ignored her messages. I didn't want to make this into some childish back and forth, but I also wasn't going to let her think that I could be pushed around anymore. The messages kept coming, but they weren't apologetic anymore. They were passive-aggressive, like she was trying to guilt-trip me into responding. "You're really going to make me be the one to fix this? You're making it worse by not talking to me. I guess this is who you really are, huh?" I didn't reply. The more she texted, the more I felt this cold, gnawing frustration in my gut. Every message felt like an attempt to put the blame on me, to paint me as the bad guy in all of this. She had a way of twisting things, of making it sound like I was the one who needed to apologize for the mess she'd created. I sat on the couch, staring at the messages, feeling the weight of it all. It wasn't just about the vasectomy consultation anymore. It was about respect, about boundaries, about autonomy. And I wasn't going to back down on that, even if it meant fighting until the very end. I put the phone down, the silence pressing in on me again. I was angry, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. But I knew one thing. I couldn't let this go. Not yet. The phone rang late that afternoon, and when I saw the name on the screen, I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. Rachel, Melanie's sister. We hadn't spoken much since the fight, but I knew she and Melanie were close, so it was no surprise she'd be checking in. I hesitated, then swiped to answer. "Hey, Rachel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Jake," she said, her tone immediately sharp. "What's going on with you and Melanie? She's been telling me everything, and honestly, I'm a little shocked at how you've been handling this." I clenched my teeth, bracing for the fallout. "I'm handling it the best I can," I replied. "I don't know what you've heard, but I'm not the one who crossed a line here." There was a pause, and I could almost hear her rolling her eyes. "Jake, come on. Melanie's just trying to be responsible. She's looking out for both of you, making sure you're on the same page about having kids. And you," she sighed, "you're acting like an immature kid, throwing a fit over a consultation. She didn't mean anything by it." I gripped the phone tighter. "It's not about the consultation, Rachel. It's about the fact that she didn't even ask me if I was okay with it. She made a huge decision for me without even blinking." "You're making a mountain out of a molehill," she shot back, her voice rising. "She was just trying to be proactive. You two have talked about not wanting kids for ages. She was trying to help you get on the same page, but now you're acting like she betrayed you." "I don't think you get it," I said, my voice colder now. "It's not about whether or not we agree on kids, Rachel. It's about respect. She made a medical decision for me without asking. She didn't even consider how I might feel about it. I felt like I didn't even get a say in my own life." "Well, she didn't do it to hurt you," Rachel argued. "She did it because she cares about your future. She just wants what's best for you both. But now you're punishing her." "Punishing her?" My stomach tightened. "Punishing her? I'm not punishing her. I'm just trying to show her that boundaries are important in a relationship. She can't keep doing whatever she wants without considering how I feel." Rachel scoffed. "Boundaries? Jake, she's just trying to make sure you two are on the same page about everything. She didn't force you to do anything. All she did was make an appointment. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I leaned back on the couch, running a hand through my hair. "I'm not blowing it out of proportion. You're not hearing me, Rachel. I'm not going to let her walk all over me anymore. I need her to understand that she can't just make decisions for me, not like this. I don't care if it was a consultation. It was a line that shouldn't have been crossed." Rachel's voice became more insistent. "So what, you're going to let this ruin everything? This is what you want? You're just going to sit here and let it all fall apart because of something so stupid?" "I'm not letting it fall apart," I said, my patience thinning. "But I'm not going to back down either. Not on this. She's got to understand that she can't keep doing this, Rachel." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, like Rachel was trying to process everything I just said. Then, Her voice came through, hard and frustrated. "Cancel the therapy appointment," she demanded. "It's not too late. Apologize to her and let it go." "She's already apologized. You're making this worse." "I'm not canceling it," I replied firmly. "I already paid for it, and I'm not backing down. I'm not going to let Melanie think she can just steamroll me and I'll forget about it. She needs to learn that her actions have consequences." "You're unbelievable," Rachel spat, the anger now seeping into her voice. "You're making it worse for no reason. You're punishing her. And if you keep doing this, you're going to lose her. You know that, right?" I felt a flash of irritation. "I'm not punishing her, Rachel. I'm trying to make her understand something important. And if she can't see that, then maybe we need some time apart to figure out if this relationship is even worth it." "You're being unreasonable," Rachel said, her voice trembling with frustration. "If you don't apologize, I'm going to tell Melanie to leave you for good. She deserves better than this, Jake." The words hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't sure if she meant them seriously or was just trying to get under my skin. Either way, it didn't matter. I stood my ground. "Do what you have to do, Rachel," I said, my voice low and steady. "But I'm not apologizing for standing up for myself." She let out a frustrated sigh. "Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you." The line went silent, and I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand. Rachel's words echoed in my head, but I didn't feel shaken. If anything, it only solidified my decision. I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. I placed the phone down on the table and let out a slow breath, my chest tight. It wasn't going to be easy, but I couldn't let it go. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to a new email notification. I didn't even want to check it, but something made me open it. It was a confirmation from Dr. Morgan's office, confirming that Melanie still had her therapy appointment scheduled. The email was direct, clinical, like it was no big deal. But for me, it felt like a punch to the gut. She hadn't canceled it. Despite everything, she'd kept the appointment. I didn't know if she was actually planning on going or if she was just holding on to it as some kind of silent protest, a way of proving a point. Or maybe she was just going to cancel it last minute like she'd done with the vasectomy consultation. Either way, it didn't matter. The whole thing felt like it was spiraling out of control. I didn't want to sit around stewing over it, so I grabbed my stuff, got in my car, and went to work. I figured I needed some space. Maybe some time apart would help us both cool off. It was the first time in days that I felt like I could breathe without the tension choking me. But when I got home that night, things had already shifted again. I stepped inside, and there she was, sitting on the couch, her legs tucked underneath her, staring at the wall. Her face was unreadable, and for a second, I thought maybe I'd imagined everything. Maybe this was just some weird dream where we didn't fight at all. But the cold air between us told me otherwise. I hesitated by the door, unsure of how to approach her. "Melanie?" I said quietly, breaking the silence. She didn't look at me right away. When she did, it was like she was trying to decide whether to speak or not. "I went," she said flatly. "Went," I repeated, my stomach tightening. "You went to the therapy session?" She nodded, eyes still fixed somewhere past me. "Yeah, I did." I couldn't quite process it. I had expected her to back out, to at least let me have some space to breathe. But she went. Despite everything, despite how furious she was at me for booking it, she went. "Why?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "After everything, you still went? I thought you hated the idea." She looked at me then, her eyes hard but somehow tired, like she'd been holding back something for far too long. "I didn't want to go, but I had to. I needed to hear it for myself, to see if you were right." She paused, then added, "The therapist told me the same thing you've been saying, Jake, that making decisions about someone else's body without their consent is a violation of trust. Autonomy. That's what I've been doing." I opened my mouth to say something, but the words felt stuck, like I didn't know how to react. I was angry that it had taken her this long to see it, but I couldn't deny the relief that came with hearing her admit it. At least she was finally understanding. "So," I said, trying to keep my cool, "you're saying the therapist agrees with me?" Melanie's eyes dropped, and she nodded slowly. "Yeah, She did. And it made me realize a lot of things. I've been making decisions without thinking about how it affects you. I didn't see it before. She exhaled, rubbing her hands over her face. But Jake, I still don't think you should have forced me into this either. You could have just talked to me about it. I tried, I said, my voice tight. I tried talking, but you didn't hear me. You just went ahead and did it anyway, like I didn't matter. She bit her lip, looking away again. I wasn't thinking. I was just trying to make sure we were on the same page. Yeah, but that's not the same as respecting me, I snapped. Respecting what I want, my autonomy. You took that from me, Mel. You can't just make decisions like that without even asking. It doesn't work like that in a relationship. I know, she whispered, the guilt in her voice heavy. I know. I messed up. I stood there, watching her, feeling a mix of frustration and relief. I wanted to hold her, to make it all go away, but the distance between us was too wide now. I just need space, Mel, I said, my voice cracking slightly despite myself. I can't keep doing this. I need to figure out if we can rebuild the trust. If you can see me as an equal partner, not someone to make decisions for. I understand, she said, barely above a whisper. I really do, but I need to go. I need to think about everything. She stood up slowly, grabbing her jacket from the chair. I watched as she made her way to the door, feeling like I was losing her all over again. I'm going to Rachel's, she said, her voice soft but firm. I need to figure things out. I nodded, even though it felt like my chest was tightening with every second she stood there. Okay, I said, my voice barely audible. Take care of yourself, Mel. She hesitated, eyes darting toward me, like she wanted to say more but couldn't. Then she turned, opened the door, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence that followed felt louder than anything we'd said to each other in days. The week that followed felt like it dragged on forever. Melanie and I barely spoke. I could count the number of words exchanged on one hand, all of them terse and clipped. The texts felt more like battle lines than attempts at reconciliation. Every message from her was an accusation, a frustration, or some passive-aggressive remark about the situation. I didn't have much to say back, but when I did, it was sharp, cutting, as if I was trying to carve out some space between us that felt like a safe distance. I didn't want to be the first one to reach out. Couldn't. Not yet. The only communication I had with her in the last few days was her calling to ask if I could return the stuff she left at the apartment, as though that was supposed to be some easy, nonchalant request. I didn't respond. I didn't want to deal with it. The idea of handling things like they were normal, when everything felt so wrong, wasn't something I was ready for. Then came the call from Dr. Morgan's office. I'd barely picked up the phone when the receptionist dropped the bomb. Hello, Mr. Warren. This is Dr. Morgan's office. I just wanted to confirm that Melanie's therapy session went through on her card. It looks like the payment was processed earlier today. I didn't know what to say at first. I didn't know if I was relieved, angry, or just confused. She hadn't canceled the appointment, even after everything. Even after she'd stormed out, swearing she didn't want any part of it. It was her choice to go, but hearing it confirmed, hearing the finality of the charge against her card, made the whole thing feel more real. I see, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Thanks for letting me know. I hung up and sat in silence for a moment, staring at my phone. I'd been so sure she was just going to back out, let it go like she did with the vasectomy appointment. But she didn't. She followed through. Part of me was proud of her, but another part of me felt the ache of the distance between us deepening. That evening, just as I was finishing up dinner, another text buzzed across my screen. This one was from Melanie, and it was different. Jake, I've been thinking a lot about everything. I know I've messed up. I went to the session, and I can see now how out of control I've been. The therapist said the same thing you've been trying to tell me. I'm sorry for making decisions for you. I didn't realize how much I was overstepping. I'm willing to work on myself. I want to come home and talk. Please, can we try to work through this? I stared at the message, reading it over and over. It was an apology, the kind I hadn't expected to hear from her. Not this soon, not like this. It hit me in a way I didn't anticipate. Part of me wanted to just breathe a sigh of relief, to let it all go and take her back in, but there was still a knot in my stomach. I didn't reply immediately. I put my phone down and walked around the apartment, needing to clear my head. I couldn't decide if I was ready to forgive her, if I was ready to trust her again. Sure, she was admitting she was wrong, but how could I be sure this wouldn't happen again? How could I know that I wouldn't be blindsided again, feeling like I was living in someone else's version of my life? I spent the rest of the night pacing, thinking, questioning everything. The silence between us had been deafening, and now, with this text, it felt like I was being pulled in two different directions. I loved her. I did. I wanted to believe that we could make it work, that she could change, that I could trust her again. But the truth was, I wasn't sure how to rebuild that trust. Not when everything felt so broken. It was late when I finally turned off the lights, the weight of the night still heavy in my chest. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to picture what moving forward would look like. I wanted things to go back to normal, but normal had never felt this fractured. I wanted to be with her, but I wasn't sure I could let go of the way she made me feel small, like my voice didn't matter. I loved her. I was sure of that. But trust? Trust was something else. I wasn't sure how we could get that back. Not yet. And as I closed my eyes, I realized that I wasn't just wrestling with what I felt for Melanie. I was wrestling with what kind of relationship I even wanted, what kind of love I wanted to build. For the first time in a long while, I didn't know if I was ready for the answer. Melanie came back to the apartment a few days later, her face tired, but something different about her. She didn't say anything at first, just stood in the doorway, like she wasn't sure how to move past everything that had happened. We hadn't talked much in the days leading up to this, just the occasional uncomfortable text, and now here we were, facing each other like strangers who used to know each other really well. She finally stepped inside, closing the door behind her. For a long moment, neither of us moved. I stood by the kitchen counter, my arms crossed, the silence between us thick. "You wanted to talk?" I said, my voice rough. "Let's talk." She nodded, taking a slow breath. "Jake, I know I've messed up, and I know I've hurt you." She took another breath, as if gathering the strength to say what needed to be said. "I've been trying to control everything, and I get now that it's because I'm scared. I've been terrified of not being in control, and that fear made me do things I'm not proud of. I didn't trust you, and I didn't trust myself to make decisions that were right for both of us." I felt my chest tighten, hearing her say it out loud. This wasn't the same Melanie I had seen the last time she was here. She wasn't defensive anymore. She wasn't trying to brush it all off. This was different. I wanted to believe her, but I still felt the sting of everything she had done. "I know I need help," she continued, her voice small. "I need therapy, not just for us, but for me. I have these patterns, Jake. I need to work through them." I didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there, absorbing her words. I wasn't sure what to say or how to respond. Part of me wanted to scream, to say that it had gone too far for any of this to be fixed, but another part of me just wanted to let her in, to let her back. But the space between us was still wide, and I couldn't ignore that. Finally, I exhaled slowly, stepping closer to her. "I get it," I said, my voice tight. "I know you're scared. I know you've got your own stuff to work through, but that's not the problem, Mel. The problem is that you crossed a line. You made decisions about my body, my future, without asking me. You took away my right to say no. And that's something I can't just forget." Her eyes filled with something like regret. She nodded slowly, like she knew I was right. "I didn't mean to," she said quietly. I thought I was doing what was best. But I see now that I can't make those decisions without you." I swallowed hard, feeling the anger I had been holding on to start to burn in my chest again. "I'm not trying to punish you, Mel. I just needed you to see that when you don't respect someone's boundaries, when you just take decisions like that, it's a violation. And I don't know how to move forward if we don't get that." She looked down, her hands twisting in front of her. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, her voice breaking slightly. I messed up, Jake. I wasn't thinking. I don't think you were, I said. But it wasn't just a slip-up. This wasn't some small thing. This was about trust and respect. Her eyes met mine again, and for the first time in a while, I saw that same person I used to know, the person who cared about me, who could admit when they were wrong. I get it, she said, nodding slowly. I'm going to work on myself. I have to. I have to learn how to let go of control, how to respect your choices, your autonomy. I can't do this anymore if I keep making the same mistakes. I took a deep breath, pushing away the frustration I still felt. We both need to work on this, Mel. We both need to figure out what healthy boundaries look like for us. I don't know how this is going to work, but I can't do it alone. She stepped forward, closing the space between us, her hands slightly trembling. I want to make it work, she said softly. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you either, I admitted, my voice quieter now. But I don't know how to rebuild the trust we've lost. It's going to take time, Mel. And if we're going to do this, we need to be sure we're both in it, really in it. I'm in it, she said immediately, her voice firm now. I want to rebuild. I'll do whatever it takes. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the conversation settle in. Okay, we'll start with couples counseling. We need help to figure out how to move forward from here. It's going to be hard, but I think it's the only way. Melanie nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'll do it. I'll work on everything. I just need you to be patient with me. We both need to be patient. I felt the anger and hurt that had built up between us over the last few weeks start to ease a little. It wasn't gone, it wouldn't be gone anytime soon, but this felt like the first step toward something real. Something we could both build from, if we were both willing to put in the work. All right, I said, taking a deep breath. Let's start there. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fixed. But for the first time in what felt like forever, it felt like we were on the same page. That was enough for now. 3 months had passed since that night when Melanie and I finally sat down to talk. In that time, we'd done a lot of work, both individually and together. Melanie had kept up with her therapy sessions, going every week without fail. I could see the changes in her, even in small ways. She was starting to check in with me before making decisions, whether it was about our home or even the simplest things like what to have for dinner. It felt like a shift, a slow but steady one, towards something more balanced between us. We'd also started couples counseling, which had been a huge step for both of us. There were still moments when we'd clash, when old habits would resurface, but we were learning how to handle them differently. No more making decisions behind each other's backs. No more silence. No more pushing the other person's needs aside. One thing that really stood out to me was how open we were becoming about things that used to be hard to discuss. Take birth control, for example. That had been a touchy subject before, with all the confusion and tension surrounding the vasectomy discussion. But now we talked about it like it was a shared decision, not something one person had all the control over. We sat down one night, laptops open, researching different birth control options together, reading up on the pros and cons of each one. After talking through it, Melanie decided to try an IUD, something she felt comfortable with after learning more about it. It wasn't a huge thing in the grand scheme, but it was a moment where I realized just how much we'd changed. We were making decisions together, not just about big life stuff, but even the little details. Things still weren't perfect. Trust was still a work in progress. There were days when I'd feel that nagging uncertainty in the back of my mind, the fear that she might slip back into old patterns, or that I'd make another decision without consulting her. But we were talking about those fears now, acknowledging them instead of pretending they didn't exist. That was progress. I felt grateful for how far we'd come, but I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. It wasn't about fixing everything overnight, but about building something new, something stronger. There was still so much to navigate, so much we needed to learn about each other and how to communicate better. But I wasn't walking around with that feeling of dread anymore. I wasn't wondering what decision Melanie was going to make for me next or how she'd try to control things. We had an understanding now. And even though I knew we had a long way to go, I also knew we were both in it. As I sat there, thinking about it all, a part of me felt lighter than I had in months. There was still a lot of work ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the right path. Together,